Sprague. She is a founder and creator of Soul CPR, which is an emotional wellness process for people who seek to heal the past and live in the present. Soul CPR is a life-changing work that unravels emotional blocks, resolves the lingering effects of trauma, and restores a person's wholeness and happiness. Linda holds a Bachelor of Arts degree, and she's certified in trauma resolution therapy, trauma relief and recovery, and she's also certified in the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Linda is also a master of astrology and tarot. For over 30 years she's been doing that. She's an experienced practitioner in metaphysical studies and has clients all over the world. If you'd like to learn more about Linda, I'm sure it's on your flyer there, you can go to lindasprague.com. I am proud to introduce Linda Sprague.
So, before we begin, just have a little moment of quiet. Danae's going to do a little gong so we can just settle into your chair, relax. And just remember, each and every one of us has our particular role to play here on planet Earth as we go through massive transformations on our planet and move into co-creating a new world. Soul CPR is just one part of that. Each and every one of you has your part as well. So good morning and welcome to the Holistic Festival of Life and Wellness, sponsored by Mystic Mandala. VJ Warman and Jennifer Ray, I have to say, as creators of this festival, very amazing. Great space, great people. Wonderful to be here. And I want to thank Danae and Carol. They're sharing my table with me today and helping me a little bit. Somebody coming in. We have a clipboard for email if you'd like to be on my mailing list, and I hope you'll sign it. It's right there. There's photos in the back. So I'm Linda Sprague, and I've had a multifaceted private practice in Dallas for 25 years. That includes gateways to synchronicity, that's astrology and intuitive spiritual work, and Soul CPR, an emotional wellness process for people who seek healing. My subject today is Soul CPR, the name I have given the work I've been creating for the past 25 years. Soul CPR is a life-changing process that unravels emotional blocks. It resolves the lingering effects of trauma, and it restores a person to wholeness. Soul CPR helps people heal the past and live in the present. This is the message I want to emphasize today. Heal the past, live in the present. If we're going to do the work that we all need to do, we have to be in the present to do it. So we don't really have time, energy, or room for dragging a big bag of stuff with us, right? When I came to Dallas many years ago, I worked in women's health. I was a counselor and later an administrator of a women's center that provided pregnancy termination. This was certainly a good, venue to get interested in something like trauma recovery. I went to my first training and certification in trauma resolution therapy through the Houston Psychological Institute, that's the late 80s. And later, I received another certification in trauma recovery through the Graham Institute here in Dallas. I didn't want to drop my metaphysical studies, so I decided to add the trauma recovery and to combine them as best I could, and that's how the private practice began. So here we are years later, with one earthquake and upheaval after another. As a collective body, we're growing and changing and we're co-creating this new world. One of the byproducts of this change is stress and trauma. I believe we're living in a traumatized world. We are continually shocked by natural disasters and domestic and international outbursts of violence, not to mention assaulted by continual rapid shifts in our own individual lives, correct? Does anybody else here today besides me believe we're living in a time of massive upheaval and change, and the byproduct of this transformation is often difficult? Yeah, okay, all right, I'm with you. So again, I believe we're living in a traumatized world. So let me ask you a question, just for a moment. Just ask yourself, how do I respond when I hear about all the stuff that goes on? Whether it's San Bernardino or Paris, let's just stop a moment and check inside and share a little bit what we feel. Put aside political, historical, social, put aside even your spiritual knowing and analysis, and just ask yourself, on a raw level, what do you feel? And anybody care to share a word out loud? Do you feel horror? Do you feel sad? What else? Anything?
Grief.
Pardon?
Grief.
Grief. Yes, grief.
Trepidation.
Trepidation. Yeah, thank you.
Nervous.
Nervous.
Anger.
Anger. Yeah. Anger. Unease. Unsafe. Yeah. Fearful. Now it's reaching the point almost of a little bit of numbness when things happen. And underneath all that, for me, there's a feeling of powerlessness. It's just real hard to think, how can it be soft and feeling powerless? So thank you for sharing. Soul CPR addresses difficult life events on a personal level. We're not here today to solve the world problems because, like I said, that requires more than this room. So Soul CPR is going to address old emotional issues, traumatic occurrences. So let's all get on the same page with this definition of trauma that goes way back when that I learned many years ago. Trauma is something unnatural, something that should not happen. It comes out of the blue without my permission, and it throws me into shock. It causes physical and psychological damage, and it causes emotional pain, and it radically changes my life. Did that sink in? Trauma is something unnatural. It comes out of the blue without my permission. It throws me into shock. It causes physical and or psychological damage. It causes emotional pain, and it radically changes my life. Let me ask you another question. What do you feel when bad things happen? When something happens that violates how you believe things ought to be, what do you feel and what do you do? Remember, if we break a leg, someone hauls us off to the ER and we get put back together. Does this happen when you're hit by an emotional 2x4? Somebody emotionally socks you in the solar plexus. How do you respond? So just think about it a moment, and maybe you'll feel like just sharing one or two words that come to you. Shock, or how do you respond? Anybody? Think anything? When something bad? Sickness in my core, Denise said. Anyone else? Physical, physical icky in the core. That's pretty natural. And then how we handle that is like our strategies. Some of us clam up. Some of us have outbursts. When I taught this process, we called it kick the dog. Somebody had a bad day at work and comes home and slams doors and yells at the dog and yells at everybody because they had something bad happen and they didn't know any other way to manage it. Some people isolate, some people try not to think about it, some people get depressed, sometimes we can't sleep or eat. So just think about it, and those of you who shared, thank you very much for just sharing your thoughts on it. Fortunately today, people do not have to stay traumatized. PTSD is treatable. It's a recognized condition. There's tapping methodology based on energy meridians. You familiar with that one? There's medicine, of course. There's regular therapy. There's group work. There are spiritual programs for recovery. And we can visit a shaman and have a soul retrieval. Because trauma shatters the soul. It shatters the energy field. There's also Soul CPR that addresses that energy field. We can heal the past and we can live in the present. Let's talk just a little bit more about traumatic incidents. Does trauma happen just on the battlefield and in the bad parts of town? What kinds of events can be called traumatic? Since the 1980s, PTSD has been recognized, and eventually it was added to the list of treatable mental health conditions. We do not have to experience sexual abuse or the battlefield to undergo trauma. Many difficult events trigger the same physiological and psychological symptoms. Here are some events that are considered traumatic. At the top of the list is the death of a child. That's number one. It will create the most psychological impact and symptoms of PTSD. Other traumas include the unexpected loss of a loved one, divorce, relationship endings, being diagnosed with a critical illness, moving far away when it isn't by choice, bankruptcy, and even when a job ends as a result of beliefs and values being violated, that too is traumatic. We don't want to leave our job unless we decide to leave it. That's when we should leave a job. A lot of times there's trauma with that. Just as there are different frequencies of existence on the planet and in the universe, there are different frequencies of difficult life events. It is true that those of us in this room are not living in a refugee camp. However, we have our own difficult life stuff that holds us back from living fully and in our power and in the present. I've heard many people say they should not feel so bad because their partner left or their boss betrayed them or their parents abused them. After all, they forgave that person and they carried on. Have you heard that? Forgiveness is a beautiful thing. Colin Tipping's work on radical forgiveness is powerful, so valuable. Certainly, I'm not suggesting that forgiveness is impossible by itself. The miracle of forgiveness happens. We just want to be sure that the effects of trauma are not alive and kicking in our daily lives. We want to heal the past and live in the present. Many people I have worked with come to me for healing because they don't understand why they are still living in the wound of what happened. They've done their spiritual work to forgive. They've done work to understand why things happened and why they got hurt. Understanding is wonderful, but it may not resolve the inner world where the event is still remembered and relived. Let me tell you about someone I knew when I was working in a program called Recreating Your Future. Someone's here? Hey, cheers. This goes back to the 90s. It was for unemployed professionals who had been downsized or let go and usually in pretty difficult manners, they've been let go. So they came to our program that included a trauma recovery process as well as other forms of coaching for getting motivated again and feeling confident again to go out and seek employment. These people ranged anywhere from in their 40s up to maybe even some in their 60s, but right in the mid-range, right around 50 for some of them. So I'm going to tell you about a man named Robert who lost his job due to downsizing in the 90s and the paradigm shifting that occurred then, that some of you may remember. He was told by his own boss that his position was secure as all this was going on. After all, he was a VP, he was important, they wanted to keep him. He watched as his staff members were let go by the outside hired agent. Any of you ever been in a situation where they brought in the outside hired agent to do the firing? He felt sad for them, but he felt relieved that his job was safe. Then one day he went to work, and he was called in to see the hired agent. There was a piece of paper in front of him, and it outlined the conditions of his severance package. In short, in exchange for financial support for 1 year, he was a VP, he was not to complain or file suit against his company. He lost his job on a beautiful spring day. He was given a box for his personal belongings. Security stood by and watched him pack up to be sure he did not go on his computer and take any information. He turned over his keys and a security person walked him to his car. That was standard during that time. When he came to our program to heal this past event, he understood intellectually what had happened. He had certainly forgiven his boss. His boss had said what he had to say. The boss was not allowed to spill the beans to Robert. He came to accept that the company was sold and went into a different direction, and it had a different mission. However, he was still suffering. He admitted that for 6 weeks after he lost the job, he didn't tell his wife. Every morning he got up as usual, he dressed as usual, and he went to the library. He suffered from insomnia. He lost motivation to look for work. He was only 55 years old. After going through a trauma recovery program and getting remotivated with other coaching support, he did return to work. He put the difficult event in the past. He still knew it happened, but he didn't live in the sad event. But just think about it. At first, he was so upset, so shocked and disoriented by what had happened, he couldn't even tell anyone. He just got up, got dressed, and went to the library. Sat there and tried to sort it out. So that's how severe it can be. What are the signs of a difficult life event that still needs some healing? I'm going to tell you just 6 of them. Number 1, when something difficult happens, we almost always say, I can handle this. I can handle this. Now, that's a good thing in the beginning. Initially, we have to be able to do that. As grown-ups, we should be able to say, I can handle this. But if it goes on too long, it will stand in the way of true healing. The second thing I want to tell you is about unfinished conversations with a person associated with the event. So we got the little talk going on in the head to our mother, to our father, to our boss, to our friend, to wherever we had something difficult slam us in the gut. And we go over and over it. If only I had said this, or if only this hadn't happened. So we're trying to resolve it that way. Next, hypervigilance. What if Robert had gotten a job, but he hadn't gone through any kind of healing? He might have had hypervigilance every time his supervisor said hello. He would be on alert, like something bad might happen. Sometimes people even have nightmares. That's another one. Then, the fifth one, getting triggered when we hear something else that reminds us of the event. We might get sad, we might disassociate for a while, we might have anxiety and not be able to stop thinking about the old event. Triggered, even by movies or by something we see on TV. Last, let me just remind you, frozen energy in the body or psyche blocks us from living an empowered and happy life. Difficult, shocking events can freeze us up and give us complaints and illnesses, headaches, digestive problems, back issues, insomnia. This is a mind-body connection or the body-unconscious mind connection. So many years ago, when I was I think I was 10, and my sister was 10 years older than I am. She had just married, and she was expecting her first child, and it was a very exciting thing for me, being 10 or 11, whatever it was. One Sunday in the fall, I skipped home from Sunday school through autumn leaves, and when I got to the porch, my cousin was standing there waiting for me, and she said, "Your sister lost the baby." I immediately went into disbelief and shock. My heart pounded, my face was hot and red. I said, "No, no, no." My mother appeared and confirmed this horror. The baby had died in delivery. No one discussed the deeper questions of the event, and there was no way, at 10 years old, I could begin to understand how God could let this happen. I spent many childhood years talking to the Almighty about this bad event. I had not met the goddess yet, and wondered, would that have made a difference? But I don't think so. I asked why it happened, but there was never any answer. And I don't believe any grown-up could have answered it. In the late 80s, when I got certified in trauma recovery, I applied the steps and the process to this childhood event. And I never think about it anymore. I can stand here and tell you what happened without losing my breath or feeling my heart pound. I remember the event, but it's in the past. It was a terrible, terrible thing that happened and must have been a total trauma for my sister, who didn't want to have children right away. But what was I trying to understand at 10 or 11 years of age? If bad things happened, was there really a God? I think I was trying to understand something about the mystery of life and how it was that there could be such things that even happen. Why do bad things happen? I guess what we learn from that is that we're not totally in charge here. Difficult life events happen. And they show us that we are not totally in charge of our life, at least not all the time. We're always seeking to understand what we do when we feel powerless. Strange things happen in life, horrific things happen, hurtful things, and wonderful things happen. We fall in love, we have family, we learn, we grow, we travel. All kinds of great things happen. Life is a mystery, and life is an essay. Have you seen the movie Inside Out? Besides me, yay, okay. I'd be wearing a t-shirt if I had it yet. Okay. I really love this movie. You remember, if you saw the movie, and I'll tell you if you didn't, we have core emotions and we have memory islands in our psyche that contain all kinds of feelings that make the whole. Now we talk about 5 basic emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. Out of that package, we have a rich memory bank of events. Those islands of memory, they make us what we are. I love the movie Inside Out. It makes me happy that that children are learning that we're a bundle of energy and emotion, and we need all the emotions. We need joy, we need sadness, we need anger and fear, we need even disgust. All are valuable and they're needed for a total human experience. I also love the movie because it does portray what I feel I've been doing for 25 years. I've been helping people heal their core issues and rebuild their memory islands. The practice of Soul CPR is based on the premise that all feelings fully felt return to peace. And the healing begins when we learn how to have safe communication about those feelings. So let me tell you how Soul CPR works. There are 4 basic steps in this emotional wellness process. Number 1, we tell our story. We relate what happened and what we felt when it happened without analysis and without judgment. Second, we identify how our values and beliefs were violated in the event. Third, we explore how we handled the aftermath of the event, and we call this step our strategies. Number 4, we grieve our losses. Very important. Make a list, grieve your losses. There is a 5th step. The byproduct of all of this is we celebrate what we've gained and how we've changed and how we've grown. I'm going to share a story about someone very dear to me. We worked together for a long time using these steps. Of course, I'm giving just a little teeny bit of her story. It's shortened and it's simplified. And of course, she remains anonymous. I'm just going to call her Christine to give her a name. I met her when she was 37 years old. She had been to various kinds of counseling in her life and very much wanted to put something big behind her. That something big was sexual child abuse that started from the time she was 3 years old. The perpetrator was her grandfather. It went on and on and on. Her parents never knew. She was way too young to be able to verbalize anything or talk to anyone about it. It wasn't until she had gone to college and become a psychiatric nurse that one day she remembered some things and realized why she'd become a psychiatric nurse, to try to figure out her family and all these issues. So that went on for a while. Anyway, when we met, she began to use this process to go over some of the incidents that were that happened often. They happened in the same way when she was little. And so she went over what happened, and even though she was 3, she could remember in her body. So we worked a lot with body, of where it was in her body and what her body told her about her sadness and her fear and disgust and many things that went on. Of course, the main number 2 item, how were my values and beliefs violated? This should not happen, period. A family member or grandfather should not be abusing the grandchild. Her strategies, of course, included things like nightmares. One of the serious side effects, of course, was not being able to be sexual. And the few times that she was in a romantic situation, she pretty much disassociated and didn't quite remember it. She never expected to have a partner or be married. She grieved her losses, most definitely. She reached a point where she felt better enough that she wanted to go back to where she had lived, to be close to her siblings and nieces and nephews, since she didn't think she would ever have children. And she did that, and lo and behold, her 5th step happened, and she met someone and actually got married. And she thought this was just almost, for her, this was like a miracle that she could live with someone, that she actually was able to be in relationship and not worry that she was going to wake in the night and hit him if he touched her, because she was very hypervigilant. She still has some nightmares, but she doesn't think about the incidents. If she has a nightmare, it doesn't bring up days and days of anxiety and worry. She's less upset by them, by the nightmares. They're annoying, but she understands where they come from, and she's able then to rest better. So that's a pretty dramatic situation, but that's what we did. We did those steps. We focused on those steps over and over and over again. Healing happens when we're seen and heard without judgment or explanation. It happens when we can freely express ourselves with authenticity and with reality. It happens when our feelings are validated by others. Working on things in our own minds is helpful, but so many times we go into a tape loop. We cover the same material over and over. We relive the event over and over and over. But when we share our experience, our feelings and thoughts, and our grief, we're empowered and liberated when someone hears us. Hope you've had that experience of being heard and feeling freer and more empowered. In October, I offered an introduction to Soul CPR at Dallas Yoga Center. This was a life skills workshop. Some people covered life upheavals, devastating losses, ongoing family upsets, and everyday stress, chronic emotional issues that they felt had shattered their body-mind connection. Things that cause a person to be in a state of anxiety or just depleted of life juice. Sometimes when we've had something difficult happen and it's not been resolved, we just don't have much energy, and it's hard to make the decisions. So that's what we focused on in the workshop. I will repeat this workshop on Saturday, January 9th, again at the Dallas Yoga Center, and there are flyers available for that. I hope to see all of you there. There's other information, of course, about me and what I do in the back on these podiums. On February 21st, I'm going to offer a 2-day consecutive program for training and certification in Soul CPR. This training will give you the tools for being an emotional wellness practitioner. If you're already working in a healing capacity, this can give you new tools and methods for your practice. Who might be interested? Soul CPR workshops and training are for anyone desiring soul renewal, wholeness, and happiness. It is for everyone who wants to heal the past and live in the present. The training also gives caregivers, coaches, guides, wellness experts, body workers, yoga teachers, and spiritual practitioners important methodologies and tools to help clients. Licensed counselors and hypnotherapists may be interested because there is a beginning, a middle, and an end to the process. And so it's good for clients who have a limited number of sessions if they're dealing with something very immediate that's happened. I'm going to close with some remarks or feedback that I received from a participant at the October workshop. She gave me permission to read this to you. Of course, I'm not going to mention her name. And then we'll probably have a few minutes if you have any questions that you want to ask. So this is very heartwarming. Of course, it made me feel wonderful. And I'm happy for her. It's very gratifying when you get some really good news, you know. So she wrote and she said this: I wanted to thank you for a great workshop. The biggest blessing and shift was finding the key to the guilt prison I've kept myself in for the past 6 years. When my husband was offered a job in Texas, I left mid-school year from my MBA program to relocate with him. I've held myself in so much judgment for that decision that I really haven't had any peace since the move. 6 years. The workshop really helped me get clear on why I was so upset and to put a plan in place to move forward. It's really so amazing to have held myself in so much judgment. And then to be able to let go over the course of one evening is truly the biggest blessing. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for that gift. I want to thank you for being here this morning for the very first talk before this place gets crazy madhouse. And we have a few minutes. I wonder, would anyone like to ask any questions or give any response or make any comments? Yes? She asked about a brain institute. No, where I got the training? No, it was at Houston Psychological Institute, and then there was an institute here in Dallas called the Graham Institute, that Barbara Graham, a PhD in spiritual psychology.
Yeah. And then you sort of made your own.
Yes, yes. So this has grown out of those trainings and certifications. And I've tried to address the whole person, although I think the process addresses the whole person, because I also offer astrology and I offer a lot of intuitive spiritual work that kind of goes with it. That's a good question. I would like to say one thing about it because I believe that this trauma process starts from the point of view that you will find your spiritual place if you start with what you felt rather than have an idea of how it ought to be. And that's been my experience, that people have found peace, they have found compassion for themselves, and then the spiritual component comes from that at the end, like whether it's God or their religion or it's something else. So that's the difference between this work and maybe starting from like an AA program. You know, a 12-step program where you turn it over first, and people sometimes have a hard time with that. This starts right where you are, and then maybe you get to that place where you turn it over.
So did you add more than how you feel than what they taught you?
No, they started with it. Yeah, it started, a man and a woman had a problem. They were therapists in a treatment center, and they, one of them went into, like, got triggered, and they kind of worked together and trying to find a way to get out of it. And it really does start with having the ability to just be with what you're feeling. Usually you need somebody else to model that, to be with you with it for a little bit, and then you get better at doing it just on your own. Thank you for your question. Janice.
Linda, years ago when I did this, I did it on a specific event, but I was wondering about like set energies and repeating patterns.
Yes.
This is something.
Yes. Yes. This is Janice, and Janice was at the Recreating Your Future. She had experienced job loss and went through that process, and now she's asking if you have stuck emotional stuff from the past, from childhood, or things like that. Yes. Yeah, since that time I've worked a lot with people, like Christine's story I just told. Yeah, where there's actual things that just perpetuate and stay in the present all the time, where you're triggered, or you can't sleep, or you can't stop thinking about it. It can address that. Now here's what I did add. I look at it like we are a hologram, and whatever happens right now in the present, it kind of represents the whole picture, the whole hologram, right? So if you address that one piece, a lot of times it will help heal the whole thing. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
Is there a difference between soul retrieval
And Soul CPR? Yes. Soul CPR is actually this process that has steps to it that provides a safe, simple structure for people who've had trauma and they are actively involved in healing themselves. Soul retrieval, I do some soul retrieval. Sometimes in traditional soul retrieval, the practitioner does it for you. And you present and say, this is my problem, and they do something for you, and then they talk to you about it. And the way I work, if I include soul retrieval, I have the person actively do it with me. Does that make sense? Anyone else? I so much appreciate your attention. It was great to be here today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. There's lots to do out there. Thank you.